Okay, I probably shouldn't have held this video off for so long.
Ah, YouTuber. What's wrong with you?
So towards the end of my last video, I made a couple of jokes playfully poking fun at SMG4. And then a few days later, it was announced SMG4 was ending, and then I felt bad. I really do have the worst timing ever, oh my god. Even though I haven't watched a single SMG4 video since I was like 12 to 13 years old, outside of a couple of the newer ones out of morbid curiosity, it's not really my thing, I still felt a little something hearing it was going to be wrapping up soon, given just how many of these videos I used to watch as a kid, and it naturally got me thinking about Glitch Productions. It's easy to forget these days of how huge it's gotten, that Glitch Productions was created by SMG4. It's even easier to forget what it was like before the likes of Murder Drones and Digital Circus turned the channel into the money-printing cornerstone of indie animation that it is today, acting as a way to finally give aspiring showrunners the ability to tell their own stories that very likely would have been rejected or sanitized to the point of being unrecognizable by today's industry. While a good amount of its catalog are still awaiting more episodes and are just going off the promises of their pilot episodes, Glitch has a pretty diverse range of shows, and it's not hard to see why many have fallen in love with their output over the years. From hugely popular juggernauts like the previously mentioned Murder Drones and Digital Circus, to the new wave of upcoming originals like the Gaslight District and Knights of Guinevere, Lackadaisy. I still can't believe they got their hands on Lackadaisy, it doesn't feel real. And what I was most interested in looking back at, the two shows that started it all that have long since been neglected and forgotten about. I can't act like I've been wanting to review all of Glitch's shows for a while now, this was a very recent idea, but the thought has crossed my mind a few times, and given the recent SMG4 news, I figured now would probably be a good time for me to finally review every single Glitch Productions show, even if some of these are still just pilot episodes. Full disclosure, before making this video, the only Glitch shows I had watched were Digital Circus and the pilots for Gaslight District and Knights of Guinevere. Also Lackadaisy, but you can debate whether or not that counts as a Glitch show or not, I don't really care. I'm actually looking at many of these shows for the first time, not just because it'll finally make the Murder Drones fans in my audience happy, but also because I barely see anyone talk about Meta Runner or Sunset Paradise despite them being the two shows that kicked everything off. And naturally, I want to see what value they actually have, and if they really do deserve to be treated as if they never existed in the first place. So yeah, this is my review of every Glitch Productions show, or how I fell in love with Glitch Productions. I'm trying that new A/B testing feature for the titles, so I don't know which title you're gonna get with this one. But before I jump into this properly, please allow me to fulfill a contractual obligation. This video is sponsored by Take My Muffin, the series that asks the bold question of, would you guys still love me if I was an amnesiac unicorn named Corny with a knack for business ventures? This show makes me feel bad because I didn't pursue business for my GCSEs. All joking aside, I actually feel pretty honored to be promoting it today, as it's an all-new independent animated series being released alongside the rest of us amateur schmucks on YouTube. Like, this genuinely makes everything I've ever created in my life look like it was designed by ants, blending surreal sci-fi storytelling, contemporary humor, and sharp satire together with clean and professional-looking animation. The series looks like it'd be right at home on streaming platforms like Netflix, except you don't have to pay anyone to watch it. Each episode is about a group of friends pursuing the previously mentioned business startups and the insane effects they have on society, delivering a smart, creative, and wacky comedy while still having an intriguing plot going on in the background as the mystery of Corny's identity slowly unravels. If this all sounds right up your alley, then head over to the official YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and binge as you please. Season 2 has just finished production and is right around the corner, so you won't be waiting very long for more. Thank you so much to Take My Muffin for sponsoring this video, and thank all of you for helping to support this channel. I didn't really know what I was getting into with Meta Runner. All I really knew was that it was the first Glitch Production show to ever be made and arguably the most neglected. Like, seriously, for being one of the most important parts of Glitch's legacy, you never really see them mention or acknowledge Meta Runner, like, ever, and I don't fully understand why. If I had to take a wild guess, it might have something to do with the brand distancing itself from SMG4 and establishing its own identity, because I only found out while I was halfway through Season 2 that Tari, the main character of Meta Runner, initially debuted as an SMG4 character, and my immediate response was, what the fuck happens in SMG4, dude? Like, I'm old enough to remember when these were just Mario 64 bloopers. I feel like I've been pulled out of cryo sleep looking at the channel today. This is not a critique of SMG4, by the way, I'm just reaching unk status, I guess. Like, who is this? Who are you? What have you done with Ouija? I'm gonna go bash my head against the wall. Hit it, scat man. This section is about Meta Runner, I just didn't really know where to put this rant of mine. Meta Runner is set in a world where the glass ceiling has finally been broken and all of the oppressed groups can prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers. A semi-futuristic world where gaming is more than just entertainment or a hobby, it's a way of life, which coincidentally are the same words I mutter to myself when I'm stuck in piss low in Marvel Rivals. He did 14k heals and he has ace! Now, if you explain this premise to the average person, they would probably recoil in disgust and call you a redditor for enjoying it, but I actually really like how this whole world looks and how gaming is quite literally everywhere, from being able to play games on the streets, the importance of esports and professional gaming, even the mere idea of a meta runner being someone who literally sacrifices one of their limbs just to enhance their gaming skills shows just how all in they are with the concept. Say what you will about it, and believe me, I am showing a lot of restraint. They're fully committed to everything here. I mean, even all of the fake mock-up games they've made, like the knockoff platformers and shooters, still have plenty of effort put into their art direction. There's no fucking blast ketchup from Johnny Test. So in essence, they really have visually captured what 10-year-old me would consider paradise. An ideal future, free from the troubles of modern society. Oh, for fuck's sake, Borderlands is still a thing! Fucking piece. I should probably go into more detail now. Meta Runner is about a lady named Tari, a meta runner suffering from amnesia and was the subject of an experiment gone horribly wrong. She also has the ability to not only be perfect at basically any game she plays, but to also teleport into the game itself, which is some beta bollocks. I mean, what plebeian would possibly need— Shit! This power quickly catches the attention of Lux, the CEO of TazCorp, the de facto big evil corporation of the series, quickly taking the spotlight off of Crunchyroll. There was probably something in the contract mentioning that. Lux naturally wants to use Tari's power to his benefit and for research, while Tari is having none of that. Also, when she gets pulled out of the first game world she goes into, she brings back this little called Theo, the protagonist of this world's legally distinct Mario knockoff, and the two are saved by Lamar, Sophia, and Masa, creating a rowdy dynamic of dorkheads more commonly referred to as a resistance against TazCorp. That's the basic synopsis at least, and to the series' credit, I think the plot has just enough intrigue to keep you hooked even if you aren't completely sold on the whole perfect gamer reality thing. Seeing the different game worlds they warp to is always fun, and it's a great idea for a series in the first place, not just for location variety but also genre variety. It helps certain episodes stand out from the rest. It's creative, I like it. What I'm a little bit more mixed on is the presentation, which I won't give too much because after all this is an indie series and it was also the first series glitch ever produced. It's certainly a substantial step up from SMG4, that's not really a compliment, my bad. Visually the series looks fine, and I like a lot of things about it. The previously mentioned art direction for the knockoff video games, the design of the city, and how games are incorporated into everything. They're all solid ideas and executed well. I also don't mind the character designs too much. They're relatively inoffensive. Where the series loses me a bit is the animation quality, which again I won't give them too much shit for, but the mocap does look a bit awkward at times, and Theo's animation might explain the month-long absence of my sleep paralysis demon, because evidently the fucker is trapped inside my computer. For a pre-Digital Circus glitch productions, the effort is definitely commendable. It's just a little hard for me to ignore the jank. Though the next two seasons do look substantially better. What'll likely make or break Meta Runner for you is the writing itself, which, yeah, no shit, of course it would. But I'm not talking about the story itself or even the characters really. Besides the final season, which I think has a massive pacing problem and a number of questionable decisions that I'll get into shortly, the overall plot of Meta Runner remains fun and intriguing from beginning to end. And while the characters are nothing to write home about, especially the side characters who kinda get neglected a bit, despite the story really wanting you to care about them, I think they all serve their purpose well enough, and I found Tari likable enough, maybe even a little compelling. I thought Lux was a semi-decent villain, nothing groundbreaking. I've seen the evil CEO of an evil corporation too many times now, and Handsome Jack is still the best in that regard. Fuck, they've got me thinking about Borderlands now! Handsome Jack is still the best one, though I will not be taking questions about that. But Lux doesn't do a bad job or anything. No, when it comes to the concerns about the writing, I'm mainly talking about the dialogue. Let's just say—
My name's Sophia. And you've already met Tall, Dark, and Weeb over here.
It's an acquired taste. It's worth noting that Meta Runner is one of the few glitch production shows to actually be co-created by Kevin and Luke Lord-Richigal, the minds behind SMG4, and co-written by Kevin and Jasmine Yang, who is also a writer on SMG4. This makes sense as this was the first glitch production show, but it's also extremely obvious because the dialogue is very 50-50 with me. Sometimes it's alright and it just passes through one ear and out the other for me, and sometimes it makes me want to rip my own face off.
Is that a new body pillow?
Oh, Satsuki-chan here's my side chick. I've quite a few. I'm a bit of a player, you know what I'm saying? Stop! Fucking stop!
Of the few modern SMG4 videos I've seen, the writing style definitely matches up. Though I will give them credit, Meta Runner is a lot more restrained and takes itself far more seriously than the absolute clown show that is SMG4. I was actually surprised at how dark the series could get. Hey, I can see your ass tweeting, motherfucker, put that back in the draft. But the series has a lot of levity and plenty of jokes, and the jokes very rarely landed for me because I'm just not a fan of the writing style for SMG4. I don't find it funny, I find it cringe-inducing, and I can't really help that. You know that Smiling Friends clip channel of the Dolly Dimply character inserted into certain scenes? That's how a lot of characters talk in this show.
There's a freaking dead body and freaking salties! Hey, I'm better head out.
I mean, hell, visually Dolly would fit right in. The dialogue is not the end of the world or anything, and it does get more tolerable as the series goes on, though you could argue that's just me growing numb to it after a while. And I was still able to enjoy the series overall despite it, but I can definitely see why Metarunner wouldn't appeal to some people. It's an acquired taste, and I don't want to be a dick about it, but I'm certainly not the target audience for this. The series also doesn't have a whole lot of actual substance. It just tells a solid story, which is totally fine. I don't think Metarunner needs to be high art, but I do personally prefer it when I have something to actually dig into outside the story and characters. Other than the dialogue, I don't have anything else scathingly negative to say about the series except for Season 3, the final season. I don't know what happened with Season 3. It's not all bad, but it's definitely the worst season by a long shot. The first 2 episodes are a fine start to the series, but then Tari gets stuck in a pirate MMO game called Skybreakers for the rest of the series until the final f***ing episode, and it feels incredibly unnecessary. It makes the entire last season drag because of the unnecessary amount of time spent in this place. The pirate stuff gets old very quick, and even outside the stuff with Tari, the pacing feels very off. And the new villain, Dr. Sheridan, who replaces Lux after Lux is killed in Season 2, who is also the scientist we saw in the first episode, who is also the creator of Tari, and also Tari is an artificial intelligence. This does make more sense if you watch the series, trust me. Just kinda sucks. He's a lot more goofy than Lux, and as a result has more jokes. And they're shit. He's just a massive loser. He's not even a particularly well-written loser, he's just kind of lame. I did think Season 3 had a decent ending, all things considered. I was surprised by how much the final episode redeemed the entire season after they spent most of their time bumming around in Pirate Land, but overall I thought it was a disappointing note to end the series on. All in all though, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Metarunner, despite nearly every character fighting my will to live when they tried to speak. If you can withstand some corny dialogue and put up with the ambitious but slightly jank presentation, you can easily have a decent time with it. I didn't know what I was expecting for Glitch Productions' first ever series, but I can safely say this pretty much fits the bill. Compared to many of their future projects, it's not nearly as impressive, but I definitely don't think it deserves to be forgotten about.
Ugh, a ginger.
Where the fuck did that come from? Sunset Paradise is the second Glitch production show and also the second series to star an SMG4 character. However, unlike Metarunner, which was so divorced from SMG4 it was basically its own thing entirely, Sunset Paradise is a full-blown continuation of a story arc in SMG4 set in the same world as SMG4. Why did they do this? Are they stupid? I'm being rude, sorry. I again didn't realize what exactly I was getting into until I had already watched a decent chunk of the series. I was fully aware that the protagonist, Meggy, was an SMG4 character, just from the few SMG4 related posts that occasionally claw their way into my Twitter feed, but I had absolutely no idea that Sunset Paradise was not only a continuation from an arc in SMG4, but that if you had absolutely no knowledge of the story arc beforehand, you would be missing a shitload of context and were automatically fated to never like the series to begin with. Because yes, I don't like Sunset Paradise, because it's not for me. It's for SMG4 fans, and that'd be fine if it was on the channel specifically for SMG4 fans that happens to be called SMG4. If you have no idea what SMG4 is, it doesn't exactly tell you it's related to SMG4 on the tin, does it? If you're a fan of SMG4, I suppose you would probably get some enjoyment out of this series, because as it stands, I'm totally lost and can only work with what I have, so I won't be making any sweeping statements about Meggy's character arc or anything that relates to SMG4, because I am simply not equipped to tackle that, and you will sooner catch me with a gun in my hand and make me watch hundreds of SMG4 videos as homework. Nuh-uh, no thanks. Even then, I haven't exactly heard glowing things about this series even from devoted SMG4 fans. The most I ever hear people say about it is that it's fine at best, but for me I wouldn't even go that far. Even ignoring all the things I don't understand, I just don't think the series is very good. For one thing, it doesn't take itself nearly as seriously as Metarunner and has a much more upbeat and cartoony vibe because of it. This itself is not a bad thing, but given this is basically an extension of SMG4, the complaints I had about Metarunner's dialogue and jokes are amplified here, because that's now 80% of the show. If you want to make your Dolly Dimply jokes for this show, then go right ahead. There's parts of this that are just one-to-one Dolly Dimply bits. I do not find a single joke in Sunset Paradise even mildly amusing. I do like the more comfy Saturday morning cartoon vibe it's going for, but it's simply not enough. I also thought the plot, the parts I could comprehend anyway, to be very uninteresting and overstuffed with villains that failed to leave a lasting impression, and any character that wasn't Meggy didn't really have my attention nor any of my limited amount of care. Like, they straight up killed one of the characters in what was supposed to be an emotional sacrifice, and I'm telling you right now, not a single muscle in my face budged. watched. I guess the friendship between Meggy and Ori is kind of endearing. There's really not a lot here, but I'm really trying to find something, anything I can talk about. I don't want to be negative here. Again, it's a series that's clearly not made with me in mind, but even as its own thing, I don't think there's enough here that works. If I can give this show anything, I'll say that it looks nice. There's less reliance on motion capture here than with Metarunner. The character animation is a lot more cartoony and expressive, and honestly I just prefer how this show looks in general to Metarunner. Metarunner had a lot of great ideas and was super ambitious for an indie series, but was clearly held back by its budget, whereas Sunset Paradise goes for a much simpler, more focused art style, which I can definitely say was the right call. There's not a whole lot in this show that looks jank. I think it's a very comfortable middle ground. However, this is the extent of what I can actually say about this show, because without watching SMG4, there really isn't much to sink your teeth into here. At best, I think the series is harmless fluff, but at its worst, it's a confusing mess that's not particularly funny or engaging, which seems to be the consensus some SMG4 fans have too, so I can't really be missing anything here, surely. If I'm missing something about this series that you specifically like or appreciate, then feel free to let me know in the comments, but I don't think there was a single reality where I was going to be totally into this. More power to you if you like Sunset Paradise or if you somehow managed to comprehend the story, but I shouldn't be forced to watch hours upon hours of SMG4 just to have a basic grasp of a series on an entirely different channel. Metarunner managed to spin off SMG4 in a way that made sense, so I don't see why Sunset Paradise couldn't do the same thing, or Crazy Idea could have just premiered on SMG4 where it actually fits, because right now this seems like the black sheep of Glitch's catalog. I think it's more forgotten than Metarunner actually. How did you make me hyped for fucking Nightcore? I think of all of the shows I'm talking about today, Murder Drones is the one that longtime subscribers of mine have been begging me to talk about the most. And I'm sure that a lot of you were elated that I was finally talking about it in some capacity after, swearing off the series entirely. For those who don't know, which is probably most of you, I have a bit of a complicated history of Murder Drones, and it's not what you think. I actually watched the series for the first time just for this video. I hadn't seen it previously. But basically what happened is that a couple of years back I was getting a lot of requests to review Murder Drones, and I had expressed somewhere, probably on my old Twitter or Discord server, that I wasn't really interested because I had other things to work on at the time, and what I didn't realize was that certain individuals in the Murder Drones subreddit were a bit more unhinged than I was used to at the time, with some guy creating a blatantly fake screenshot of me uploading a negative Murder Drones review just to drum up outrage and get the fans of the show mad at me for some reason. I had heard the Murder Drones fandom, specifically the subreddit, was a bit on the toxic side, but I didn't expect to suddenly be in deep shit just from expressing casual disinterest. I'm not trying to bring this up as some sort of boogeyman tale against the Murder Drones fandom. It was a couple of people, and after I made a stink about it, the users were allegedly banned and I was issued an apology by a lot of Murder Drones fans. I'm over this by now, but I think you can understand why I was extremely hesitant to even mention Murder Drones on my channel. But over the past couple of years, I've seen a lot of fans of Murder Drones and my videos continuously requesting that I talk about it, and I've also seen a fair number of posts from people in the Murder Drones fandom who were understandably upset that a couple of bad eggs gave them a bad name, and also drove me away from giving the show a chance, and not gonna lie, it made me feel bad. So before I even considered making a full video about Glitch Productions, I decided to finally watch the entirety of Murder Drones. And I liked it. I won't fall down. Okay, partner, let's chill out. I am not glowingly positive about Murder Drones, but I do like it. And I want to get the positives out of the way first, because there's a lot about this show's presentation, its vibe, and its atmosphere that I just plain love. I've heard a lot of people describe this show as a horror series, and I mean, yeah, there's horror moments, but I wouldn't say there's anything super terrifying in this unless you happen to be 12 years old. Oh, wait. Joking aside, I found the series more spooky than scary. I can work with spooky, I love spooky. Nightmare Before Christmas is one of my 7 personalities. And this show is definitely at its best when all of the comedy and noise is drowned out and it's just reveling in its more spooky and mysterious scenes. The atmosphere is immaculate. What I also adored was just how much of a blatant love letter the series was to early to mid 2000s edgy emo cringe, and how much it fully embraces it without a hint of shame. No bullshit here, that is also one of my 7 personalities. I'm finding out in real time that I might have a personality disorder. It's like an Invader Zim infused shot of liquid Linkin Park shot straight into my veins, and it is simply a delight. The over-the-top action scenes, the gory violence, the angsty characters, for f***'s sake, they play Nightcore during the final battle. I don't even like Nightcore, but yeah. The show is clearly sincere and knows exactly what it is, and for that I greatly respect it. Sincerity is sorely missing from a lot of shows today, and while I don't think Murder Drones is some sort of masterpiece just for being sincere, I do greatly appreciate it. And the animation is just sublime. Episode 1 starts out looking okay, but then episode 2 just ups the ante, and then it just keeps getting better to the point that the final 2 episodes are among some of the most high quality CG animation I've seen in an indie show. The fights look incredible, the lighting is amazing and adds to the already fantastic atmosphere. It's just a stellar looking show all around. And for what it's worth, I found the story intriguing and mostly engaging when I was able to comprehend what I was looking at. Yes, I'm gonna get into the negatives here, because as much as I vibe with Murder Drones and love its presentation and production values, the writing has its quirks.
I'm not mad at you, by the way, just generally hormonal.
Leave me alone, Dolly! For one thing, this is the first Glitch production show to not be created or written by the minds behind SMG4. Instead, Murder Drones is created and written solely by Liam Vickers, a well-known YouTube animator who was previously well known for creating the animated pilot for Cliffside, or at least that's what I know him for. And to be frank, this is a big reason why I greatly admire Glitch and everything they're doing for indie animation, being a large platform for up-and-coming creatives to finally showcase their work to the world while supporting them all the way. I think it's really cool that what started as a channel not far removed from SMG4 has transformed into its own beast entirely, and I see its existence as nothing but a win for independent animation, or well, as far as you're willing to stretch the definition of independent. Murder Drones even existing and succeeding as much as it has is nothing short of commendable, and you cannot deny how much it's helped to change things for the better. Now, with all of that said, from the genuine bottom of my soul, I think the writing of Murder Drones is very messy. Not enough to the point where I think the series sucks or anything, but it definitely hampered not just my enjoyment, but my comprehension of what was actually going on. For starters, just like Metal Runner and Sunset Paradise, the humor is not this series' strong point, and I think it does far more harm than good. I'm not saying there should be a complete absence of levity, but Murder Drones is one of the most tonally inconsistent cartoons I have ever watched. It can go from spooky intense all the way back to Saturday morning cartoon on a dime, and it almost never works well. The series initially makes a big deal out of all of the deaths, treats it like a super serious and terrifying moment when the Murder Drones actually make it past the walls, but very quickly the show just starts killing random characters for funnies and also showing a complete lack of care from a lot of the characters who witness said deaths. It deflates a lot of the tension, and stops me from taking much of the show seriously because of how poorly it manages its tone. And I might have been able to forgive it if the jokes themselves were at least mildly humorous, but I still didn't laugh once throughout this series. There were a handful of jokes that made me crack a smile, and the series isn't nearly as SMG4 coded as Sunset Paradise, so it's at least an improvement. But Murder Drones has a lot of that oh so quirky humor of a lot of its dialogue and even visual gags, and that stuff just really isn't for me, especially when it's actively harming the really strong sense of mystery and spooky elements that I love. The VAs are definitely doing their best to elevate the material though. Michael Kovac's N was a very notable highlight. Hell, the voice acting in general is top notch across the board, but it can't save the jokes for me. Another thing I found very confusing about Murder Drones was, well, how damn confusing this show is. Murder Drones is a mindfuck. If you watch this casually without paying the utmost attention to every minute detail, you will get lost. Just ask me. I got lost. Me, the Gravity Falls guy. If I had to describe the storytelling of Murder Drones, I'd say it was delightfully incoherent at best. It really threw me for a loop because I thought I had this show figured out by the first episode. It was so simple to understand. Might as well give the basic synopsis, I forgot to give it earlier. A long time ago, humans started a colony on an Earth-like planet and created worker drones to serve them and help harvest the planet's resources, when suddenly a catastrophic event happens that wipes out all biological life on the planet and leaves the worker drones to fend for themselves as they finally have independence from humans and start living their own lives. Then one day, a bunch of murder drones are sent down by the evil megacorp that owns the planet to exterminate the remaining worker drones, who build walls to keep the murder drones out of their somewhat functioning society. Blah blah blah. Years later, we got our protagonist Uzi, who vows to destroy the murder drones. He meets a stupid but friendly murder drone named N, and they form an unlikely alliance. That's the Cliff Notes version, and for what I've gathered in the first episode, I thought that Uzi and N were gonna team up to enact vengeance on the humans who sent the murder drones down in the first place. But then the second episode starts and I am suddenly waterboarded and thrown into the back of a moving truck falling off a cliff. Delightfully incoherent is what I described the show as a second ago, because Jesus Christ, it is super hard to follow what's going on. Murder Drones has a ton of subtext and lore. There's an admirable amount of world building here, and I find it all extremely interesting on a conceptual level. But if you're trying to make heads or tails of this plot as you watch the episodes like a normal person, it doesn't really work. Like, it goes without saying for any story-driven show that you should be paying attention, but Murder Drones doesn't even show an ounce of restraint. Nearly every time a new episode begins, it just throws you into the deep end immediately with no context as to what is going on or what you're being shown, making you second-guess everything you thought you knew previously. Certain story-important bits of dialogue go by in the blink of an eye, so don't be surprised if you find yourself confused at Uzi activating her fucking devil trigger in episode 4 because I didn't catch that was a thing. You're thrown into flashbacks head first, you're thrown into memories series of said flashbacks headfirst without any context at all until they finally sandblast you of what you need to know nearly 10 minutes into the episode. It's a lot. Murder Drones is a lot. And sure, it's not as if none of this makes any sense. I'm sure most of it does make sense, but it's a series that greatly benefits from rewatching and constantly replaying scenes because of how fast the show moves from one point to the next. It is super easy to miss crucial information, and personally, I can't keep up with Murder Drones. It's too much for my tiny mind. After I finished the series, I had to watch the Cartoon Universe video breaking down the entire story and all of the lore that I had missed because I just didn't catch most of it. I was flying blind for most of this series, and I guess that's a testament to how much I still enjoyed everything else about it, since I'm still here talking to you about why I liked it overall. But from what I'm gathering, I'm not the only one who found Murder Drones unnecessarily confusing and flat out overwhelming. Straight up, if you're a Murder Drones lore master, you have my utmost respect. I know I just made it sound like Murder Drones is an incoherent mess, and to be fair, it is, but I still think if you're a massive fan of their early 2000s edge and embracing of the cringe, if you really fuck with the spooky, mysterious vibes and atmosphere, Murder Drones is definitely worth checking out. It's not for everyone, let me be clear. I know there's a lot of people in my life who would fucking hate this show, and it's not without its flaws, but I was very pleasantly surprised by what I had watched, and I can see why people were asking me to look at it for so long. I hope my review of it was worth the wait. If you still want to burn me at the stake though, then, well, shit, I tried. No, Jax, don't have a realistic depiction of a panic attack! Here it is, the show that I think most people watching this video are here for. There is no denying the immense success of the amazing Digital Circus. There's almost no indie show on YouTube that compares. I still struggle to comprehend how successful this show is. I remember when I first made my video about the Twitter discourse surrounding it and the pilot had like 50 million views in its first week. I thought that was impressive on its own, but over time the series just kept getting bigger and bigger. The pilot now sits at nearly 400 million views. I don't know what it was about Digital Circus specifically that made it pop off like this, but any indie series achieving this sort of success in such a short amount of time is more than commendable. It's flat out enviable. If you can stomach the fact that all of the insane content farms on YouTube Kids milking the show for all it's worth has likely contributed to a large portion of its success, but I'll stop being a dick now. It is far and away Glitch Productions' most popular show and their flagship series. It was how most people found out about Glitch Productions in the first place, and this new influx of viewership also introduced more people to their previous shows like Murder Drones and gave newer Glitch shows an even better chance of finding an audience and succeeding. And out of all the shows in Glitch's catalog, I'm happy that the best one was the one to achieve this level of success. Yes, it's not exactly a brave take to have as it's the most popular, but even ignoring the popularity, I think Digital Circus is the best show in Glitch's catalog and it's not even close. I enjoyed the concept of Meta Runner and loved the vibes of Murder Drones, but Digital Circus is just a really well written show. I guess that wouldn't be a shock to most people who are familiar with the creator, Gooseworks, before the show came out. Like, you go through her Twitter for 5 seconds and you immediately realize that that lady's mind is an enigma. Hell, this show is so good that there was a time I genuinely considered making videos reviewing every episode after they came out, instead of just waiting for the series to wrap up like I do for everything else. On the surface, Digital Circus is fairly simple and deceptively wacky. You probably know the plot by now, but for formality's sake, a young woman who is eventually given the name Pomni is trapped in the digital world alongside 5 other people who all take the appearances of wacky cartoon characters and go on miscellaneous adventures led by the circus's AI ringmaster Kane, and basically spend the rest of their days LARPing so they don't go insane and begin to abstract. Also, they literally describe it that way.
Our entire existence here is just LARPing.
The show is very bright, colorful, and has plenty of cartoon slapstick and jokes, and just to go on a tangent for a sec, I think Digital Circus is really damn funny. The pilot episode, not so much, it's definitely the most rough episode, which is to be expected of a pilot, but the rest of the series just fires on all cylinders comedically. There's very rarely a dialogue exchange that sounds typical of an SMG4 show, outside of maybe Kane's dialogue, but even then, Alex Roshan's manic vocal performance does a ton of heavy lifting, and he ends up making them work.
Activity, wonder, danger, horror, pain, suffering, pain, death, disease, death, angel food cake. Ow! You parasite!
The jokes are pretty sharply written, and all of the characters bounce off each other perfectly despite how extremely different their personalities are.
Pomni, take this!
Hey, Kinger, is that rope attached to anything?
I don't know. Let me check.
I know that some people have their reservations about how much of a dickhead Jax is, but he's easily my favorite character just because of how completely unhinged he is. He's such an asshole to the point you stop being annoyed by the way he mistreats people and just start laughing at the pure absurdity of the things he does. He's also just a snark machine anyway, and we stand Peridot in his household, so it was simply meant to be. I was always a fan of Digital Circus's humor, but watching the series again for this video after going through the previous glitch shows in order, it really isn't a contest. Digital Circus gets honest to God laughs out of me pretty frequently.
Did I pick a bad time?
His acting is phenomenal. It's hard to believe he's vegan.
Okay, now that tangent is done, I'll get back to my actual point. Digital Circus is very funny and deceptively wacky with its tone, because its actual strong points lie with the characters and the fact that every episode outside the pilot ends up being an in-depth character study on one of them. Humor is something Digital Circus is very good at. Character writing is something Digital Circus excels at, and it's the main reason I fell in love with this show. Digital Circus does have its own ongoing mysteries about the circus itself, like who created it, who created Kane, how does it work, is there really an exit, stuff like that. It's all solid, and I'll always appreciate any story with good world building and a proper sense of intrigue, but my storytelling kryptonite is character writing, and the way each episode explores and develops each character, slowly peeling back their layers and shedding light on their backstory, struggles and insecurities, is honestly masterfully done. Episode 2 focuses on Pomni still trying to adjust to being trapped in a digital world, fearing the possibility of abstracting and being forgotten. Episode 3 focuses on Zubal's struggle with body dysmorphia and Kinger's control over his insanity, his talk with Pomni in the dark being a shockingly moving highlight of the whole series. Episode 4 focuses on Gangle's struggle with masking her problems and insecurities. Episode 5 is a bit of an outlier as they don't go nearly as in-depth on Rakatha as they do for the other characters, but it pretty effectively showcases Rakatha's struggle of trying to be a people pleaser and her intense fear of being abandoned. And episode 6 goes all in on everyone's previously stated struggles while also giving special attention to Jax, completely deconstructing his facade and ego and his fear of getting too attached to people, leading to the shocking revelation that he could be the next one to abstract. You can be reductive and say that sometimes the show becomes too much like a direct therapy session for each character, like Pomni and Rakatha, who both have straight up therapy talks with Kinger, and it can be argued that nuance goes out the window when you do something like that, but I still think the show does such a fantastic job of treating each character with the utmost care and respect, making them all lovable in their own special ways, or twisted ways if you're a Jax fan, guilty as charged, and more importantly, making them all believable. This has also helped thanks to the absolutely stellar voice acting. I already brought up Alex Roshan as Kane, but the rest of the cast are giving these characters 110%. For some reason, a lot of people complain about Michael Kovac being in literally every indie production ever, and to be fair, he is in quite a lot of indie shows, but can you really blame him for getting picked this often when he's casually putting in performances as good as this? That man's range is genuinely incredible. Sean Chiplock as Kinger is also a highlight, especially during the brief moments when he has control over his sanity. Once you get past the wacky character designs and cartoony exterior of the show, these characters start to feel like real people, and I'm honestly super impressed with how much the show has managed to accomplish in only 6 episodes. Apparently, Digital Circus is going to have 9 episodes in total with no second season, and I'm actually not very concerned about that because I think the show is using its time very effectively. It helps that each episode is about 25 to 30 minutes in length, and doesn't fluctuate as much as Murder Drones did. Even having just a few minutes added onto an episode can work wonders, and despite the short length of the series, I don't feel like a single second of Digital Circus has been wasted yet. I'm trying to think of any negatives here, but anything negative I can say only really applies to the pilot and maybe episode 2, and even then, episode 2 is such a substantial improvement over the pilot. Like, I could harp on about how basic the pilot feels and maybe make some more Dolly Dimply references with some of the jokes, but even then I don't feel like it's that bad. I really am trying to remain as unbiased as possible. I just genuinely think Digital Circus is one of the best cartoons I've watched over the last couple of years. I guess it helps that not a whole lot has come out recently that's truly exceptional, but credit where credit is due. God, this series is so good. And I'm still not done piling on compliments. The animation is fantastic. The pilot does look very odd in retrospect. Not even in retrospect, actually. It does just look off. It might be the lighting, I don't know. But episode 2 shows substantial improvements, and in episode 3 onwards, the show looks genuinely stunning at points. I still prefer the vibe and atmosphere of something like Murder Drones, but this is some pretty good stuff. I guess you could argue that the pilot's animation fits the series more, as the whole idea of Digital Circus that is visually based on old video games from the late 90s to early 2000s, so really having more dated visuals and lighting makes sense, but the improvements in future episodes like the fluidity of the character animation, the substantially better lighting, and small tweaks to the character models completely outweigh that viewpoint for me. Digital Circus also has a noticeably great soundtrack. I say noticeably because I didn't really think much of the OSTs for previous glitch shows. I thought they were fine enough and some of the tracks in Murder Drones were good, but Digital Circus's soundtrack all around is pretty great stuff. I think that's enough glaze for now though. I'd love to talk more about this show, but it isn't finished yet and there's only 6 episodes out right now. Episode Episode 7 does come out pretty soon, but I didn't want to hold this entire video back just to include it. Overall, I think I've made my thoughts pretty clear. I love the amazing Digital Circus. I think it's fantastic not just by indie standards, but by the standards I have for most big budget productions too. I can't wait to see where the rest of this series goes, and I have faith it'll end in a way that's satisfying. Easily the best glitch show by a country mile. Not dissing the rest of them when I say that, but I really think it's in a completely different league. Name a character that went through more pain than her? How about the guy from the Gaslight District who has a full hit carried out on him because he witnessed his friend reading a porn magazine? I mean, if you really think about that, Joel's death wasn't that bad. Okay, so for the rest of this video, we'll be exclusively talking about the pilot episodes for upcoming glitch shows because that's really all we have to work with here. No biggie for me, I still have plenty to yap about of these shows specifically, but these shows are currently in production and we'll see how they progress in the future. For now though, these are my first impressions. The Gaslight District is about a bunch of undead criminals condemned to immortality by God and are all placed on a dirty, disgusting, cloudy, and crime-ridden island easily mistaken for Birmingham with a single actual human among them, and it's cool as shit, and I want f***ing more of it immediately. Jesus lordy lord. If Murder Drones was a love letter to a vibe I absolutely love, Gaslight District is the vibe. I'ma just get my negatives out of the way real quick because the rest of this section is just gonna be me gushing about this pilot. Everything about the Gaslight District moves at a mile a minute and there is pretty much no room for anything to breathe. It's just gas the entire time, which to be fair, it is a pilot, it's got a lot of ground to cover, but you honestly could have chopped off like half of the plot and dedicated more time to the first half just to pace things out more, and the end result still would have been great. There's a substantial amount of lore you can get from just the first episode, and it's such a beautifully thought out world, and I'd hate to see it be squandered by poor pacing. If they can work on having a few more quieter scenes, or just scenes with less stuff going on, then I think this can easily take Digital Circus's spot as my favorite glitch show, because even these small amounts of downtime that we do have, like the restaurant scene, is still filled with an overwhelming amount of energy, and I can see that not gelling with some people. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, no, that was everything. This shit is so fucking cool. The Gaslight District, from its manic energy, gothic presentation, and just so good. The animation and art direction is sublime. It's the best looking glitch show, at least to me. The animation is CG, but it has this clear stop motion look to it. I don't just mean that because of the limited frame rate, though that definitely helps, but it has such a claymation feel to it. The colors and character designs are bold and striking. As someone who is absolutely obsessed with Invader Zim and Psychonauts, I cannot contain my excitement just looking at this. Everything looks so grim and disgusting in the most artistically beautiful way. The characters strike that perfect balance between creepy and lovable. They're all deranged and lovable psychos with excellent vocal performances. Mel, Ken, Mud, and Breadhead have such delightfully unhinged personalities, and even with the limited amount of time the pilot had, it still found enough room to make me genuinely care about these assholes. I fully believe in the bond they share. Conceptually, this entire series is the perfect mix of edgy, spooky, and funny that really tickles my brain in all the right spots. While it does throw so much lore at you that you may need to rewatch certain parts to catch specific details, which is something I did give Murder Drones a fair amount of shit for, I feel it's still digestible enough as is that you won't be questioning what everything means all the time, and I highly doubt the second episode is going to have me scratching my head wondering what even happened. And though it does border on overwhelming, I just find myself more interested in this world and its backstory and how all of it works. Sure, a corrupted version of heaven and angels is not a unique idea, but Gaslight District manages to make it work even if it's through sheer aura. The humor is also what you'd expect from a show that looks like this, relying on a lot of quickly paced black comedy, and most of it made me chuckle. I'm happy that we're now past the SMG4 humor for the most part, and each new glitch show feels completely distinct. The Gaslight District feels tailor-made for me, if I had to put it some way. It really feels like someone reached into my mind, gathered pieces of what I consider to be the coolest shit ever, and then just made that into a show. I'm dying for more. Honestly, if I had to give one more petty critique, it's that I want more. Very rarely does a pilot episode have me yearning, craving even, for more of what I've just been given, but I can't help myself. The bastards, they fucking got me! They made the closest thing to my dream show, not without flaws obviously, but dude, the Gaslight District, I can't praise it enough. I have no idea when the show is coming back, but it better be soon. I would love to do a full review of this series someday, assuming that the rest of the series measures up to how great the pilot is. We'll have to wait and see obviously, but damn what a first impression. Knights of Guinevere, also known by its more accurate title of Dana Terrace's Unholy Retribution. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. Knights of Guinevere is a lot to process, and I mean that in a good way. I'm a fan of Dana Terrace's work. I love the Owl House, and I've been just as mad as every other fan of that show for how it was treated by Disney. So when everyone heard that Dana Terrace's next show would not only be produced by Glitch Productions, but would essentially act as a spiteful and scathing critique of Disney and the ways they're ruining both entertainment and the world, well, let's just say the hype was palpable. But beyond that, it was also interesting to see Glitch Productions' first ever foray into traditional 2D animation. And while the art style is very similar to the Owl House, which may or may not have been on purpose just because of all the Disney critiques going on, I'll say right now that Knights of Guinevere is very pleasant to look at. It was also interesting to see Dana Terrace be given basically total creative freedom with this show, and seeing what she's fully capable of without being restricted by all of Disney's bullshit guidelines and their strict standards and practices is very exciting. It's described as an adult sci-fi psychological thriller at its core. The shockingly disturbing teaser trailer drilled that into everyone's heads, and while it is currently doing a damn good job at living up to that description with its gorgeous semi-futuristic and steampunk settings, intense moments that Owl House wishes it could have had, as well as plenty of blood and gore, it still seems to be very well rounded with a light amount of humor that never clashes with the overall tone, which is something I found that Owl House didn't do a good job at some point, so it's nice to see some improvements here. I don't want to judge the series as a spiritual Owl House sequel, obviously. It's just been so long since Dana has produced anything, and I'm just happy to see she's actually getting work. Obviously, there is only one episode here, and thankfully it isn't as filled to the brim with stuff as the Gaslight District, so I'll be able to keep this relatively brief. What is here is really good. Two lifelong friends, one working as a scavenger and one who was actually employed at Park Planet, this universe's equivalent to Disney, come across a damaged Guinevere droid and seek to repair it. That's the most basic synopsis I can give because that's currently all that's really happened in the plot, but what makes the series a great conversation piece is just how big of a middle finger it is to Disney and the state of the industry. While it's obviously set in a less than ideal future than what ours will hopefully be like, it's still very effective at showing just how much of a devastating effect Park Planet has had on this world and its society. Guinevere is definitely a blend of the iconic appeal of Disney's princesses with the mascot status of Mickey Mouse, except she is essentially at the heart of everything Park Planet creates, constantly being remolded, picked apart, and put back together over and over. Oh, thank you, Disney, for proving my point while I was writing about you. Guinevere's face is plastered everywhere for all to see, and her image is no doubt enchanting and stirring the minds of children everywhere, just like how Mickey Mouse, Disney princesses, and Disney in general did for all of us who grew up watching their stuff. But for the adults of the world, it is a living hell of being overworked, underpaid, all to fuel a corporation that is everywhere they look. And as much as they hate what they're doing, they have no choice but to work for them just to survive. I mean, that is just life in general, but the image of this Disney-like company owning so much of the world and becoming such an unstoppable monopoly that it controls basically every aspect of our lives is both a very realistic fear given how greedy and flat-out evil Disney can be, but it's also very clear that a lot of the show is based on Dana Terrace's spite towards the company. Very well-founded spite, I will say, but if you've been critiquing Disney's practices for years, it's not like any of this show's commentary is going to be mind-blowing or remotely enlightening to you. It is perhaps the most justified crash-out someone can have after being burned by a company they grew up loving so much as a child that they eventually went on to create their own show for them, but it can be argued that nothing Knights of Guinevere is doing or what it's trying to say is all that unique. Where the show's value does lie, though, is managing to exist and be as critical of Disney as it is, while still being high quality, in a world where public opinion of Disney is at an all-time low. This show, once it finally starts getting more episodes, is going to resonate with people very fast, and judging by how horrifying the teaser trailer was, I'd say we're in for a real treat with this one. I have no idea how many episodes there's going to be of this show, but it's absolutely succeeded in grabbing my attention and I'm officially hooked. There's not much for me to say here other than I hope Knights of Guinevere continues to succeed, and hopefully inspires more up-and-coming creatives to start telling their own stories without being pressured by the forced sanitization plaguing the industry today. Okay, this is a bit of a weird one. Lackadaisy is a name I have heard and been aware of for about as long as I have been using the internet, but only after the pilot came out did I finally take the plunge into Lackadaisy's 19-year history, and I've been a fan ever since. The original Lackadaisy webcomic is an absolutely astounding achievement. It's gorgeous, it's easy to lose yourself in the story, etc. This entire project is so lovable, and the pilot that was released in 2023 is by far one of the most impressive animated pilots I have ever seen. This level of quality from an animated pilot is unprecedented, but Lackadaisy deserves to be seen in its full glory, and I think they knocked it out of the park. It feels like I'm watching a classic Disney movie just with slightly more adult themes. I really cannot praise the Lackadaisy pilot enough, and I encourage you to go watch it for yourself if you haven't already. I'm not even going to synopsize the plot for you, just go watch it. It's more than worth your time. If I had to critique anything about the pilot though, it's that for over half of its runtime, it doesn't really do a good job of explaining what the show really is or what exactly is going on. Everything becomes crystal clear later on, but as a pilot for an animated series that will likely bring in a ton of of new viewers. It feels like it was made mostly with longtime fans in mind, and I think they could have done a better job at making it not feel like that. I don't know. But again, the fact I can't even word that complaint directly, it's more of a nagging feeling than anything, is proof of its quality. That's my only nitpick. Despite the success of the Lackadaisy pilot, it's been a while since I've heard much about it. I'm more of a casual Lackadaisy fan. Any announcements that are made about the project usually catch my attention months after they happen. Whoops. So I didn't really know where the series was at or if it was going to be continued someday. And then out of nowhere, it was announced last month that a full 6-episode series was being backed by Glitch Productions, which, while a very shocking outcome, is probably the best news the series could have gotten. But at the same time, I didn't really know how to approach talking about Lackadaisy for this video because it's not really a Glitch Productions original. It can be argued it's a bit of a stretch to call it a Glitch show. Not that I necessarily believe that, it's just, I don't know, it felt odd. But at the same time, I think it's a sign of just how big Glitch Productions is now that they can swoop in and help out an already established IP and give them the proper funding to finally flourish with nearly total creative freedom. It was an unprecedented move, and frankly, that's where I'm gonna end this section because I don't really have much else to talk about with Lackadaisy. There's only the pilot from 2 years ago to look at right now, as well as the recent news with Glitch, and I personally don't think anything I say can do Lackadaisy justice. Just go watch the pilot if you haven't already. And that's every Glitch Production show to date. I'm sorry I didn't have nearly as much to say about Knights of Guinevere and Lackadaisy as I did for everything else, but there's only so much I can work with when there's only one episode for me to dig into, unless you're the Gaslight District and you happen to make my brain happy just from existing. Overall, I found myself pleasantly surprised with Glitch's catalog. While they still catch some flack due to the SMG4 humor that's present in a lot of their marketing, as well as some of their shows being content farm fodder and thus negatively affecting their perception, I'm really happy that there's a thriving animation studio that's helping to greenlight ideas from up-and-coming creators that otherwise would be shot down in today's industry. I see their existence as nothing but a positive, and no argument about them somehow holding a monopoly on indie animation or that they just produce slop will ever convince me otherwise. The next few Glitch shows that are currently in production have a ton of potential, and I hope to talk about them again someday once they're completely finished and I have more to sink my teeth into. Please give me more of the Gaslight District. I would genuinely kill if it made that show come out faster. As for Digital Circus, it's still my current favorite, but that could easily change. Either way, I will talk more in depth about Digital Circus once the series finishes, and that's a promise. I was also very pleasantly surprised by Murder Drones, and I'm happy I gave it a chance, even though I could barely comprehend what was happening half the time. As for Meta Runner and Sunset Paradise, while they are emblematic of a different era for Glitch, and Sunset Paradise specifically not really being that good, I don't think they should just be neglected and forgotten. Hell, I'm surprised barely anyone talks about Meta Runner. I was expecting for there to be plenty of videos analyzing it, but it really has just been forgotten about. I hope if you've watched this video all the way through, thank you, and haven't checked out some of the shows I've covered today, because statistically most of you watching this video have only seen Digital Circus and Murder Drones, I recommend that you do. You may fall in love with the ones that I fell in love with, and you might see more in certain shows that I didn't have as many positive things to say about. Oh yeah, don't forget to check out the video sponsor, Take My Muffin. They will be linked in the description. Thank you for watching. Play Yakuza Kiwami Free. No, they haven't sorted that out yet. Play Dispatch, actually. Dispatch is very good. Dispatch is really good. Just play Dispatch, please.